Welcome back to the Broomghost Dustpan, the official podcast of the Broomghost Let's Play channel.
This is episode 2 in our series, Wait, Is That Not Zelda? In which we play through every Zelda game in canonical, chronological order, beginning with Skyward Sword and ending with Tears of the Kingdom.
On our last episode, we covered the first title in the series canon, Skyward Sword. Today, we'll be covering the next title that falls in lore order, The Legend of Zelda, The Minish Cap.
Hit me with some facts.
Alright, so The Legend of Zelda, The Minish Cap. It was released in the United States on January 10th, 2005 for the Game Boy Advance.
2005, dude.
Yeah. What were you doing in 2005?
Somewhere in middle school. I honestly have no idea. Let me see. How old was I? So I was 13 and you were 14.
Okay.
So this is like 7th, 8th grade for us. Mm-hmm. Except you were...
I was in 9th grade.
You were in 9th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't smart enough to skip a grade. So I think I was like...
I think it has more to do with my birthday being in August.
I think I was like super into Pokemon, super into Yu-Gi-Oh! But I didn't play a lot of Zelda. I feel like I remember Minish Cap coming out, but I don't think that I played it. Like, it just wasn't on my radar.
Yeah. I was big into Wind Waker, which came before this game. I called Wind Waker my favorite Zelda game for since it came out till now, with just the implication that Ocarina of Time doesn't count when you talk about that because it's obviously the best one. But yeah, I actually didn't even know about Minish Cap. I feel like I barely remember anything about it.
Yeah, but apparently it was a pretty popular game.
Yeah, so in 2005, it was the Game Boy Advance Game of the Year.
I didn't know that was like a category.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, that seems like so specific with like, it's specifically the best game that came out for the Game Boy Advance.
That's what all of these say. Every time we look up stats for these games, they're always like, they won this hyper-specific thing for games that came out on Tuesday the 16th. This game was re-released on the Wii U Virtual Console in
for the
June.
20 people that had the Wii U.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
And we see you.
we see you.
You matter.
Your Sheikah slate is real.
Your relentless commitment to supporting Nintendo through their worst ideas. It was also re-released very recently on the Nintendo Switch Online and Expansion Pack in February.
We were super hyped about that.
Yeah, even though we played it in January.
It happened like right after we finished playing it. It was like we finished it and then the announcement came. It was kind of funny.
It just makes me excited that more people will get to play the game.
Absolutely.
So it was actually released in Europe before it was released in America. And the European release was, the game was available as its own or as part of a limited edition Zelda-themed Game Boy Advance SP. Did you ever have an SP?
I didn't. I just had the Advanced.
I loved those, the little folding ones. But there was a limited edition Zelda-themed SP called the Triforce SP.
Yep. And
it was matte gold in color, and it had a Triforce logo on the lid, and the Hyrule Royal Family crest on the lower right face. But as a launch promotion, Nintendo Europe also produced 7 24-karat gold-plated Game Boy Advance SPs, 6 of which were given away to people who found a golden ticket inside their Triforce SP package.
What's crazy is you can find these on eBay.
Really?
Yeah. Guess the price of how much one of these costs.
Of the gold-plated ones?
Of the gold-plated one.
That's insane. There's only 7 of them that exist.
Boxed Nintendo Game Boy Advance SP Gold Zelda Minish Cap Limited Edition.
Oh my god. I'm really bad at guessing prices, but I feel like this has to be thousands of dollars.
You are correct.
Is it tens of thousands?
Yes.
Okay, I would say $15,000.
$15,000? $99,000.
Okay, wow.
I just want you to be able to see what I'm seeing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Rare. Yeah.
And that's I don't know what the grading system is, but that's an 8. So it's not even like it's a perfect condition one.
Yeah.
There are some out of box for cheaper, but obviously with something of that nature being so specifically limited to such a hyper fan base of people who love this series, love these games, yeah, those are going to be expensive.
15 sounds so low in retrospect. I did at least say I'm bad at guessing prices, but yeah, there's only 7 of them in the world.
Yeah, that is insane. Can you imagine finding, like, being a kid, being 13 or 14 and playing that game and finding a golden ticket? I mean, we couldn't because we were in America and it only happened in Europe.
Yeah.
But, like, some British kid.
Imagine you're studying abroad.
Yeah. I mean, that would be so hype.
Incredible. Yeah, so 6 of them were given away through the golden ticket promotion, and then the 7th was given away as a magazine promotion. Still, just like an incredibly limited amount of these.
Yeah.
So when Minish Cap debuted in Japan, it was the best-selling game that week, selling 97,000 copies. In North America, during its debut month of January 2005, it sold 217,000 copies, and it remained among the best-selling games throughout the year of 2005, and it closed out the year as the 7th best-selling game across multiple platforms, not just for Game Boy Advance. Sean, do you want to guess the price of what Minish Cap cost in 2005? And if you Google it, I will karate chop you.
I was curious about what games were in the running.
I know. I should have pulled that list. It was several. It was like PlayStation and Sony games. Like, it wasn't just even Nintendo.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
Because I kept looking up, like, what were the top, like, Game Boy games of 2005, and it didn't match this information. And then when I found the list that it came from, it included several different platforms.
Okay, so let me get back to your question.
Yeah, just the price of buying Minish Cap when it came out.
I do not remember at all how expensive games were at the time.
Yeah.
Because there's certain ones that I specifically remember, like GameCube games were $40. Mm-hmm. And I remember that because you just told me yesterday. I would guess, I would guess $35.
Final answer?
Yeah.
$50.
$50?
That surprised me. Because that's pretty comparable to like what I would imagine a Game Boy game would cost now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and this is back in 2005.
Yeah.
$55 is quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems wild.
Pretty crazy. So, some accolades Minish Cap won include GameSpot's Best Game Boy Advance Game of 2005, beating out Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones, incredible game by the way, and WarioWare Twisted.
Incredible game, by the way.
Have you played WarioWare Twisted?
Yeah, if it's the game that I'm thinking of, that game rules.
We gotta play some Wario
Yeah,
games.
we do.
We should have like a Wario series.
Yeah, that would be great. I just played with the release of the Game Boy games onto the Switch. I played Wario Land 3, and that game was hard.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
It seemed really difficult. GameSpot also labeled it as the Game Boy Advance game we remember the most, which I think is such a sweet thing to say about it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about what makes it so distinctive.
Yeah, screw you, Pokemon Sapphire and Ruby.
Who even plays those?
Right?
In March 2007, Minish Cap was ranked as the 20th. These stats are so funny to me. It's like, here's the mediocre way. Ranked as the 20th best Game Boy Advance game by IGN, who commented that the inclusion of the ability to shrink and grow was explored to some very good results.
That's like
lukewarm.
It is, dude. That's like your mom putting your drawing on the fucking fridge. She's just like, this is great. You did a really, you know. So you're colored outside of the lines, but you tried.
You did. You tried.
That does vaguely look like a duck. That's great.
Your use of purple for human skin color was explored to some very good results. Official Nintendo magazine had it at number 47 on its 100 greatest Nintendo games
Top
feature.
50, baby.
Heyo.
There we go.
But it has an average score of 90% from Game Rankings, which is a site that compiles media ratings from several publishers to give an average score.
I like that you have that in there, because we're not just talking about specifically Nintendo. We're not talking about specifically Game Boy Advance. We're talking about like people who rated the game. This is the rating that it was given.
Yeah, and this is what I love about like looking up some facts about this game, is that it's like, It didn't seem to make like a huge impact. I mean, this gold-plated SP thing in Europe sounds pretty rad.
I find that to be, because I never heard that, I find that to be crazy that wasn't a bigger thing.
Yeah.
That America wasn't jealous of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I didn't include this in there, but there was also, like, Europe released it at a different time than America because we didn't want it to devour the DS market. Like, the Nintendo DS dropped, and so it was like, oh, here's this new amazing game for Advance.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there was a whole thing with that. But yeah, I really love the way that this game, it's kind of like just a quiet favorite where it really holds its own. Everybody who has played it seems to have favorable things to say about it. Minish Cap was praised for continuing the legacy of the Legend of Zelda series, with GameSpot saying that the classic Zelda gameplay and flavor will please fans. The game looks like Wind Waker, and it sounds like Ocarina of Time, so I feel like if you're a fan of those games.
I think that one thing that's important to mention, and we kind of touched on it earlier, is the fact that this game was directly after Wind Waker. We're talking 2000, was it 2003, 2002 for Wind Waker?
I can look up the time.
And then of course Minish Cap is 2004, 2005, 2004 in Japan, 2005 in America, right? So we're talking about continuing the success or continuing sort of the art stylistic choices and things like that came out of Wind Waker into this new game. And I think that makes sense, that you have a Link that kind of looks vaguely like the one from this previous game. You know, the people who enjoyed that game are more likely going to buy this other game. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah. The actual, like, direct predecessor to this game was Four Swords Adventures, which we'll definitely be getting to.
That's right.
Because they're kind of related.
Yeah. Which came out for the Four Swords Adventure came out for the GameCube, and it was partnered with, I believe in the box it came with another Zelda game. It was like a wombo combo. I could be wrong about that. I don't know.
You might be right. We haven't really researched that game yet. Because, you know, the chronological order of when they were released has Wind Waker, Four Swords Adventures, then the Minish Cap. And Four Swords Adventures was released 2004 and the Minish Cap 2005. So they were like really close to each other. But canonically, Minish Cap precedes it because in the Minish Cap, we get the Four Sword.
Right.
So we'll talk more about that when we get to the Four Swords Adventures game. The main criticism of the game among reviewers is that it's just too short, with RPG gamers stating the typical player can fly through the game's 6 relatively short dungeons in about 10 hours, with some other criticisms being that it isn't difficult enough and that the kinstone mechanic is too repetitive.
We'll get to what kinstones are. We'll get to sort of the dungeons and the bosses and things like that. I think that overall, a pretty good game is achieved by the biggest complaint being that it wasn't long enough.
Yeah, you know? I would agree.
Like,
yeah.
that's a... Like, if I was working at Nintendo and I saw that review, I'd be like, we nailed it.
Yeah.
You know?
And also, it's a Game Boy game. Like, you'd expect that a Game Boy game would be a little bit shorter than maybe a major console release.
Yeah.
So I have a final little fact about this game. This game contains a little developmental in-joke to the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons titles, which we will get to also as we continue playing through the games. There's an optional side quest in Minish Cap which sees the player aiding 3 female travelers from distant lands who are looking for a place to stay. The characters are Din, Nehru, and Furore, which you may notice are the names of the goddesses. And they are also from the Oracle titles. So the player will only be able to provide housing for 2 of the 3 women. And although the landlord makes reference to building a 3rd house for the 3rd woman, this never occurs in the game. The description given for Furore, the 3rd woman, in her in-game figurine, it also mentions that people take advantage of her, which makes her upset. This is meant to relate to the 3rd planned Oracle game surrounding Furore, Oracle of Secrets, which was scrapped.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Ouch.
Best goddess, too.
Furore, yeah. So Furore is green.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Furore is green. Din is red.
Yep.
And the other one's name...
Nehru.
Nehru is blue.
Yeah.
Okay?
Important. I just thought this was a fun little fact because I remember, like, when we recorded the Skyward Sword episode and I had looked a little bit into Minish Cap and I saw Din, Nehru, and Farore were in it. I was like, oh my god, are we going to finally learn more about the goddesses?
Nope!
But it's at least a joke about games that do go into the goddesses more, potentially.
Yes,
So I am very excited for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, those were some great facts.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
I curated them myself.
Is that Jake playing a song?
Oh, Jake.
Transitioning us into
Where
the
did
next...
you come from?
Oh, crazy.
Oh,
Wow.
he's getting louder. I can barely hear us anymore. Jake!
Turn it down. So let's talk about the plot of the game. And first, I'm going to start with a quick recap of Skyward Sword. Obviously, we're going to just fly through this and hit the bullet points. If you want to know more about the story of Skyward Sword, if you haven't played it, or if it's just something that you're interested in the lore, check out our first episode. You can hear all about Skyward Sword. So real quick, of course, talking specifically now about Skyward Sword, there's a war between Hylia and Demise. Hylia rescues humanity by raising a chunk of the earth into the sky. Years later, a hero is chosen who fights Demise, rescues Princess Zelda, who is Hylia in human form, and this ushers in a new era of life on the surface as the Kingdom of Hyrule is established. Okay? So that's game 1, canonically. Then we're transitioning into Minish Cap, which is game 2. And let's get directly into the plot of Minish Cap.
I am ready.
And I think it's important to note that we just ripped this description because it's way easier to just kind of contextualize it. Play the game, right? If you want to see specifically what it's about, play the game. We're just reading off the research that we gathered. So, centuries ago, Hyrule was ravaged by evil forces until the Picori, a race of tiny creatures, bestowed a young hero with the Picori Blade and the Light Force, using both to trap the world's evil in a chest. The grateful people of Hyrule would hold an annual Picori festival with legends stating that a door between the worlds would open every 100 years, allowing the Picori to return. In the present, Link accompanies Princess Zelda to the Picori Festival. The festival's sword-fighting champion, Vati, destroys the Picori blade and opens the chest, releasing monsters across Hyrule. Not finding the light force he seeks, Vati turns Zelda to stone and leaves. As only children can see the Picori, King Daltus orders Link to find them so that the sword can be reforged to stop Vati and restore Zelda. Traveling to Minished Woods, Link encounters Eslo, a magical hat who decides to accompany Link and grants him the ability to shrink to Picori size. The Picori, who call themselves Minished, then task Link with retrieving the 4-element magic stones needed to restore the Picori blade. During the journey, Eslo explains that he was once a Minish sage who created the Mage's Cap, a hat capable of granting wishes, which is very common in the Zelda games. But his apprentice Vati stole the hat and became a powerful sorcerer. Fascinated by evil and seeking the Light Force's power, Vati uses his new ability to trap Eslo in his current form, which is a cute little hat that looks like a bird. Meanwhile, Vati brainwashes King Daltus and takes control of Hyrule Castle. Link eventually retrieves the 4 elements and infuses them into a reforged blade, which becomes the 4 Sword. Link and Eslo also learn that the Light Force is passed down within Hyrule's princesses. Vati, who has been spying on them, overhears this and begins siphoning the Light Force from Zelda. Very akin to when that guy, what is his name?
Girahim?
Girahim is doing the same thing basically to Princess Zelda in Skyward Sword. Link returns to the castle and confronts Vati, who uses the extracted Light Force to become all-powerful. But Link overcomes Vati and restores Zelda to normal. Vati transforms into his demonic form only to be vanquished by Link, restoring Eslo to normal form. Zelda retrieves the Mage's Cap and uses it to undo all the damage done by Vati, destroying the cap in the process. Eslo thanks Link for his help, giving him a new hat as a parting gift, and departs through the door to the Minish Realm as it seals itself for another century.
And that's the Minish Cap.
Yeah.
so I wanted to talk a little bit about the companion for this game, which is Eslo.
Love him.
Yeah. So, as Sean read in that description, he made the Mage's Cap, which is a hat that can grant wishes. As with many Zelda games, an item was crafted that grants wishes, and then a bad guy got it.
Go figure.
Aw, shucks.
Yeah, and also, it was a very small hat, because the Minish are like little teeny tiny little bug boys.
I just love that in this game... I guess, actually, I'll finish this thought. In this game, the companion, their, title is the title of the game. Because Eslo is the Minish Cap.
Yeah.
He becomes the cap that you wear the whole time. This is actually also, as I was saying that, I realized that's also true of Midna in Twilight Princess, because Midna is the Twilight Princess.
I wouldn't know that.
But anyway, we'll get to that game eventually. Yeah, and then at the end of the game, after Vadi's defeated and the curse is broken, Eslo goes back to his original form and gifts Link a green hat, similar to the hat that he became. And it's a cute little, that's how this Link in this universe gets his little Link hat.
Yeah. I feel like this is a good time to talk about, the sub-characters of the game, too. Yeah. Talking about, the Minish. Because within the game, the Minish are everywhere.
Yeah.
You can switch between being large and being small. Mm-hmm. And when you're small, you can go into different locations in the world. It kind of reminds me of if you've ever watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and other shows like that, or movies like that, where somebody is shrunk down into a large world. Mm-hmm. You can really play around with that space, and I think that they did that in this game really, really well.
Yeah.
Because anyways, it introduces you to a lot of different characters, like the Minish, who are just this race of people that live in our world. We just can't see them.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that in addition to them just being super tiny, you can only see them if you're a child.
Yeah. Kind of creepy. Kind of sus, Minish. Yeah. And so Eslo, being this powerful craftsman and sage, a perfect choice for a companion, because I think what you achieve really well with Eslo is this sort of all-knowing character that has a reason to be all-knowing, right? Mm-hmm. He's a sage of the Minish. He's been around for a long time, and also he's been making this cap, doing this task, that is directly impacting the story, right? Where Vadi takes it over and everything like that. I think that makes him a really good companion, because it's not as naggy, it's not as robotic as Fee was, and so I really enjoyed Eslo for a companion.
Yeah.
Definitely comparatively to Fee.
Yeah, well, Fee, I would put her at the bottom tier of all the ones I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
I also really like Eslo, like you said, having a reason for him to be wise and all-knowing and guiding you and kind of encouraging you as an older male figure to this little kid is nice, but also it's the comedy of him also being kind of crotchety and cranky and hey, what's taking you so long?
Yeah. And he's a bird.
And he's a bird, which is great. I love his little animation when he's talking and his head's just flying all over the place.
It's great.
Yeah, I thought Eslo was a great companion. And I said this the first time I saw it happen, but if you save the game and you turn it off, the next time you turn the game on, the first thing that happens when you open your file is Eslo will be like, hey, weren't we doing this thing? And he'll basically point you...
So good. So good.
What you're supposed to do next, which is great. Every game should do that.
They really should, dude, because the problem is that my brain does not remember the second the game is turned off.
Yep.
Sometimes when the game is on, right? I'll be walking around in the same area for 10 minutes being what was I doing again?
Yeah.
And just the ability to have Eslo be hey, dummy, go this way.
Yeah.
I think that was a fantastic addition to a companion. And I think it's done really well. Now that we've played a couple of the other games, I can see where it's this was actually done pretty well.
Because in Ocarina of Time, you have Navi who's every once in a while, regardless of what you're doing, if you need to hear it or not, it's on a timer where she'll just be hey, and tell you what you need to be doing with a clue.
Right.
But this, I feel Eslo was giving more I can't think of the word.
Like tangible things to do and like
contextually appropriate help is what I was trying to say. So yeah, Ezlo is a great companion. We should keep a rank as we go. So we have 2 on the list, Ezlo and Fee.
Yeah.
It goes Ezlo and Fee.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So along with having a fantastic companion, I think that there were also a lot of really fun items in this game too.
Yeah.
Specific to, of course, every Zelda game has its set of fun items. There was the beetle in Skyward Sword and the whip. The whip was fun. I liked the whip. But we've got a lot of really good ones here. Of course, starting with the gust jar.
Yeah, so the gust jar was a magic jar that sucks in air and then shoots it out. It can bring objects closer, it suck in enemies. The longer you hold the button, the farther it'll shoot the air when you release. And they kind of have you use this for a lot of different things.
Oh yeah, lots of different things. It helps with like grabbing the mushroom so you can spring forward. You can suck up the dust enemies. You can it will sometimes be used to reveal hidden objects.
Yeah.
You can also there's the
put out fires.
It's not the Tektites, but it's like the turtle looking things.
Yeah, where you suck off the rock off their back.
And then you can shoot that, and that's like the fastest way to defeat that enemy. I think that's I loved that jar.
Super cool item. Yeah. There was also Rock's Cape. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that in a different way than you. But this was a cape that allowed Link to jump and dodge attacks and avoid traps. And eventually with a Tiger Scroll, you can learn to thrust down with the sword while you're jumping.
You kind of get Rock's Cape later in the game too.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of that one temple where I remember it took us forever because we would you had to use the cape to jump up those stacks of clouds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That one was...
We get stuck there for a while.
Yeah. That one was useful, though, because I think that, in a lot of Zelda games, there's so many situations where you're if Link would just freaking jump over this one little fence, everything would be fine. But he will not. Yeah,
giving Link the ability to jump on demand, it always feels like a luxury.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Then there were the mole mitts. You gotta love the mole mitts.
I loved the mole mitts.
Of course, the mole mitts making their return. They were in Skyward Sword as well.
Yeah.
But the mole mitts, you could break down certain barriers. You could dig up the certain plots of dirt. You could dig up the sky in the sky cloud area. And it was extremely helpful in finding kinstones as well when we were kind of going through that. Looking, because we couldn't stop ourselves. We had to look for kinstones no matter what.
Yeah.
Some people hate the mechanic. We liked it.
Yeah. I'll definitely go into that more. The flame lantern, that has appeared in at least one other game that I can think of. But having a lantern that illuminates dark locations, it melts ice, you can light things on fire.
I feel like we didn't really use that one too much. That's one of those ones that's temple specific, There's a couple times where you need to use it. I think there was one Tiger Scroll where you had to light all of the torches in the room in order to get it, or something like that. Yeah,
I know there was at least one boss battle where you had to use it to light a wick on the back of them, and then the dark, and sometimes it would get dark.
I also think there was another one where it was either for a kinstone piece or for something. There was remember the lady hides in that guy's house and she won't come out and she says it's too dark. And so you go in there with a lantern. Yeah. So there was that too.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Pegasus boots. Who doesn't like the Pegasus boots?
His cute little scurry.
Yeah. And then, you being able to sprint across the water in that, jungle area. Which I think was one of my favorite areas of the game. That was a cool area. Yeah, that one was good.
Then there was the Cane of Pachi, which is kind of a weird item.
Yeah, super weird.
It's a magic staff that was used to flip objects over and sometimes it would allow Link to jump high out of some small holes. You'd kind of cast a little flip spell into a hole, then get in the hole and it would throw you high.
I would say this was the item that if all else fails, try using that.
Yeah.
There were a lot of specific enemies that you could try the different items on and it wouldn't work, and then you'd use that and you'd be of course. Yeah. I'm thinking of that I don't remember what boss it was. We'll get into the bosses, but he like goes underground and you had to like, I think it was Vati, the first form of Vati.
Oh, maybe.
Where you have to like use the...
Oh, it's the last form of Vati where you had to get his arm out from under the ground.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Okay. Yeah. When in doubt, use the cane.
Yeah, and because it would like flip stuff upside down. Sometimes you'd be like, oh, I can see I have to be in Minish form in this area, but I don't understand where I'm supposed to get small, because there were all these little portals. When you start the game, there's like a little log that you go in and then you come out small.
Yeah, you can see all these little doorways that kind of look like mouse holes.
Yeah.
And you're like, and when you learn that you can be small, but you have to go through a thing, you're like, you have to go through like the
little portals.
The little portals that turn you small. You start seeing all these doors everywhere, and you're like, well, where do I turn small? Because I can't get in them.
If you can't figure out where to get small, a good bet would be to use the cane Apache and just start trying to flip things over. Because sometimes it'd be a pot, you'd flip it over, and the underside was actually a portal to become Minish.
Yeah.
So kind of cool. It was a weird item, but pretty cool.
Absolutely one of my favorite items of any game ever is something that allows you to fast travel. So the Ocarina of Winds was fantastic. It eliminates the idea of having to travel all the way back and walk all the way to this to go to this other area. No, you can go to a specific area and there's usually a little space. I don't remember how we unveiled it.
Yeah, there's wind crests.
Yeah.
Once you activate the wind crests, you can fast travel.
I don't remember how to activate the wind crests, but there's like a specific thing that you do, and he's like, "Oh, this symbol must mean something," and you're like, "Yeah, I'm sure it does." Turns out you get the Ocarina of Wind, and then all of a sudden, that's how that plays in, where you can use the Ocarina of Wind, and that's just a fast travel point.
You literally find a wind crest and then just press the A button. And
that's what it is.
So it's not even that crazy. But yeah, the other thing that was fun about the Ocarina of Winds is that when you play it, it just plays the theme from Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. Another honorable mention to an item as well is Boomerang.
Oh, we love the Boomerang.
The Boomerang is sometimes so OP. Like, because the thing is that it stuns all the enemies.
Yeah.
So you throw the Boomerang at somebody, they get dazed, and then you just whap, 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 whap,
yeah, and
you're good.
I criminally underutilize Boomerangs in Zelda games.
Well, I think I made up for it when we played Minish Cap, because I used that a lot all the time. Yeah, it was super helpful.
Speaking of that, there were also item upgrades, Sean, that we never did.
That's sad. That's sad.
There was a lot in this game for, how technically short it is if you blast through it kind of like we did. There's a lot to uncover if you spend some time in there. But I'm going to go over some of the item upgrades. We got some of them, but definitely not all of them, and like how you get them. So like you can upgrade the boomerang to a magic boomerang, which you can change its direction after you throw it.
What?
Would have been nice.
That would have been so nice.
Which you get that after fusing kinstones with all 4 Tingle siblings.
Dude, we were so hyped when we saw Tingle.
I lost it.
Yeah.
I love Tingle.
Tingle's great.
Tingle's ridiculous, and we love him. There were light arrows in this game, which they were just normal arrows, but you could charge them up before you used them, so they'd be a little stronger. You get them from the sick man in the Wind Tribe house if you suck up the ghost that's making him sick, before you get to the Wind Tribe's house the correct way. If you use the portal that appeared from a Kinstone fusion to get there, it won't work. So I actually don't remember if we got these. I think we might have.
We may have.
The other problem is that we're recording this in April. And we played this game in January.
Yeah, we're a little behind on this one.
Then there were remote bombs, which like that also sounds like that would have been very cool. They're just bombs that you lay them and then they'll explode when you press a button. You get them after fusing kinstones with the elder of the Minish village who gave you the bombs.
Oh, cool.
The mirror shield was the craziest when I was reading about how to get this.
Yeah, dude, this sounds ridiculous.
It sounds like I would have loved it, though, because it's Goron-centric.
Any Goron, you're there.
I love a Goron.
Wasn't there a giant Goron in this game?
There was, and we didn't even interact with him. Oh, man. But he is crucial to getting the mirror shield. Basically, so it's a stronger shield that can reflect projectiles. You complete the Goron quest, which we did do.
Yep.
Fuse kinstones with one of the Gorons, which we also did do.
Yep.
Then when you beat the game... I guess Big Goron will ask you to do something important, and when you return, you let him chew on your shield, and then you buy a new shield, and you come back to Big Goron several times until he gives you a mirror shield.
That is such a pain in the butt. Here's the reason why we didn't get that. Because we already beat the game.
Right. We were done.
We were done. We have 14 other games to play. I don't know how many games we actually have.
That's right? An estimate. I'll correct it.
There's so many.
Just say a couple more numbers so I can superimpose your voice.
There's 7, 8, 9, 10.
Perfect. Thank you.
There. Yeah. Pick one. Other games to play, man.
Yeah.
And so we didn't do any like New Game Plus or like, continuing on with it. It's like once we're done, we're like, okay, we got it.
Yeah.
And a huge reason of that is because the next game is freaking Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I was chomping at the bit.
So we were excited to get into that other one.
But something that we've been talking about even with Ocarina of Time that I think pertains to this game too is the way that people play games now is different than the way people played games back in this era. And like if you were a kid, you got a new game when an adult in your life bought you a new game, probably on your birthday or Christmas. So it's like you have your set game or a couple of games that you play, and so you're going to play the crap out of them.
True.
And so like if I was a kid and this was one of the games that I had, I would probably find all these secrets because you just want to be in that world. And this is a game that gives you a lot of extra things to do.
Yeah.
But with that said, here are 2 upgrades that we did get because they're part of the
natural progression of the story.
Yep. The white sword, that is the sacred blade that you have reforged, but just without any of the elements to power it. You get it by talking to Malari in the mining city after the second dungeon. I liked the mining city.
I thought the mining city was cool.
Yeah, I liked the music in there. And then lastly, the 4 sword, which is the white sword powered up by the 4 elements, which you can use to split into 4 beautiful links when you find the glowing panels on the ground. And you get this sword by getting all of the elements and going back to the elemental sanctuary to forge it.
It was a cool sword. It's the master sword.
I guess. It's the 4 sword.
Yeah. It's the 4 sword. But it's all the same properties of the Master Sword.
Except the Master Sword doesn't let you split into 4.
That's true. That's true.
I loved that mechanic of like, there were a lot of puzzles where you had to split into a couple of links and like configure them in a certain way so that when you all strike your sword or when you had to push blocks in a certain arrangement. And like I thought
there was a lot of that. Yeah.
It was a good puzzle.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see more of that in 4 Swords Adventures because it seems like that's the central mechanic of those. So, Sean, out of those, what do you think your favorite item was, or just like what did you like about them?
My top 2 are Boomerang and Gust Jar.
Really?
3 being the cane.
Wow.
I love the fact that you can, and of course. Let me be clear. I'm not counting the sword as an item because there's always a sword. You always get whatever. I'm talking specifically about like the extra items that you get. I think that those 3 to me were the most useful. I found that when you're dealing with like the combat in the game, those 3 generally get the job done. Mm-hmm. So I liked those the best.
Yeah.
What about you? What were your favorite ones?
My favorite were the Pegasus boots and the mole mitts. I like to go fast. I like to dig the soft walls.
Dude, that's like very Sonic the Hedgehog of you.
I gotta go fast, man. Get me a chili dog. But yeah, every time I found any section that had those soft walls, I had to dig like every square of it.
You did.
I'm like, what if there are kinstones?
Now, that's one item we didn't talk about that maybe we should spend the time to talk about.
Let's talk about
our kinstones.
Yeah.
So within this world, there is this whole thing of these stones that are basically in different configurations
of like 2 fragments.
2 fragments, right? They're basically like the best friend bracelets or necklaces. Like one stone will fit perfectly into the section of another stone, making a complete circle. It kind of looks like they kind of end up looking like the medallions in Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. Or really any circular thing you can imagine.
It's a huge mechanic in the game.
Yeah.
Almost every NPC in the game, including Minished, including regular-sized Tyrolean people, have kinstones that you can fuse with them. So you can find the kinstones throughout the world by either digging up the soft walls, cutting up the grass, finding them in chests.
Buying them from a traveling Goron.
That's right, buying them from a traveling Goron. And you fuse with them, and it will either unlock something on the map, it will provide you with additional information, it will lead you to a quest. There's a number of things that the Kinstones do, and this was a really hit or miss part of the game for people.
Yeah. I will tell you, I loved it because it's a collectible that's like, ooh, I'm going to like interact with all these NPCs. I am a player who loves interacting with NPCs. I love going through and seeing what everybody is and like the flavor that they bring to the game. And this makes it so like you interact with them in a very purposeful way. Mm-hmm. And like there are parts of the game where like a kinstone fusion is essential to progressing, but then there are also a lot of non-essential secrets.
There's really only, I can think of 2 parts of the game where kinstones are essential. And basically it's like if there's a gold kinstone, you need it. Mm-hmm. Pretty much. There's that one part in the forest area that's like, if I remember, is like to the left of the map. And then there's the wind area that's up in the sky, mm-hmm. where you have to get the golden kinstones by exploring the area. They fuse with kinstones that are in the environment. And that allows you to progress in the story. So like 90% of the kinstones that you get are just extra additional stuff in the game, mm-hmm. right?
Sometimes it's just rupees. Sometimes it will literally open up a passageway that just gives you more freaking kinstones.
Yeah. Sometimes it's shortcuts. You know, like there are tons. I mean, it unlocks the whole Tingle quest, I mm-hmm. think. Yeah, there which is a side quest of that, which is honestly more kinstones.
So I could see people being frustrated that it's like kinstones are hit or miss with what they do. It mm-hmm. might be something that you need, and it might be something that you don't. And if you don't like kinstones, it's gonna be a real pain in your butt. Because
if you're not interested in collecting the kinstones, you can still play this game and have fun.
Yeah,
you know, you're just not going to have access to like upgrading some of the weapons because the items, because a lot of those, the weapons you're fine, but it's the items because a lot of those were tied to kinstone missions. But like we didn't upgrade almost any of the weapons and we did just fine.
The other thing too, just even going back to what I was saying about the NPCs, a lot of the NPCs in this game are reused from Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, which are my 2 faves. So it's like being like, ooh, I'm gonna go and talk to Anju, who I know from mm-hmm. all these other games, like that's the cuckoo lady. Yeah. and then like the teacher, like kind of looks like the teacher from Wind Waker.
Oh, and then the guy, the landlord.
And the landlord, yeah. He's I can't even remember his name now, which is terrible. I can't either,
but he's in Lon Lon Ranch.
Yeah, he's Ingo.
Yeah.
In Ocarina of Time, and I think he has a different name in Majora's Mask, which we'll get to. But yeah, just a lot of these like same characters that you see reused in these worlds, and so it's just like, ooh, I know this guy. I wonder if I have the kinstone that will fit with his.
Yeah, and the way that kinstones kind of react is like, it's like kind of like giving somebody a present in Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
Like a little heart or a little question mark goes over their head, and that is kind of your prompt that they have a kinstone that they confuse with. Honestly, it's really worth it to go through and do a lot of the kinstones.
Yeah.
You get a lot of information. You get a lot of access to shortcuts and stuff. If you find a kinstone, spend the time to look around the town seeing if anybody can talk to it.
Yeah.
So, along with the kinstones, the other big one was the shells.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So the shells were a little bit different to me. I didn't like the shells as much.
I also didn't like the shells.
The shells you can find them all over the place, and you basically just accrue a bunch, but you can't get over 999, which is easy to do.
Very easy.
And all you do is you go into the Hyrule village, and to the left-hand side, there's like a little tunnel that goes down, like a ladder that goes down, and you can buy collectibles in the game.
So that character that does the figurines is in Wind Waker as well, doing the same thing. So if you've played Wind Waker and you found the guy that makes figurines, it's that guy.
Right. And all the figurines don't unlock anything. They don't do anything. It's just like memorabilia for the game.
And they do give you a little bit of information.
Oh, yeah.
So like it'll be like a figurine of like a character or a place and just like a little tidbit. It's kind of like trophies in Smash Bros. Like if you ever go through your trophies and just read the little factoids that go with them. So I did find information about how to progress some NPC quests like through the figurines, but in order to do them, you just have to sit down there forever. I think I was there for like 2 hours one night.
Because it works on a percentage, right? It's like you have like a 99% chance to get one with 3.
Yeah.
Then the next one, it's like you have a 99% chance to get some if
to
you
get
use,
a new one.
To get a new one if you use like 6. So it's like it costs more shells each time, and it increases your percentage that you'll get a new one.
So that's what makes it worth it to keep finding those shells everywhere. But if you're not interested in completing the figurines, it's just like, oh great, I'm so glad I did a Kinstone fusion and traveled all the way here just to find freaking shells.
Yeah. So yeah, that happened a lot. It was like you'd like dig something and you're like, oh my god, a golden chest, and you open it and you get like 20 shells and you're like,
yeehaw.
Great.
Let's talk a little bit about the different dungeon bosses.
Every good Zelda game has a bunch of good bosses. And I think that Minish Cap had some good ones.
There were multiple bosses in Minish Cap that were just regular Zelda enemies, except you were in Minish form, so you were tiny and they were huge.
Yeah.
I think that was fun. So the very first boss was just a big green choo-choo. Looked exactly like a choo-choo from Wind Waker. You fight him at Minish size and you beat him by sucking his feet with the gush jar until he falls over, and then you hit him with the sword.
Yeah, that one was fun because it's like, because of course, like you're playing a Zelda game, you're waiting for the first dungeon boss, and the game starts, all of a sudden you're this mini little guy and you're fighting a regular enemy. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I was like, so excited about that.
I thought it was such a good idea and a good use of the space, you know? Yeah. I think there's another one that pops up that's a big one eventually, right?
Isn't there? The Octorok.
No. I'm talking about another big choo-choo.
Oh, another big choo-choo?
I think there was.
Maybe.
Later on in the game. I could be wrong about that.
You might be right, but this was a dungeon boss.
But this specifically was the dungeon boss, and it was a good one. I liked that one.
Yeah.
And of course that is your first temple boss where you get the green element for the first part of your sword, right? The next one was the Gleerock, which was basically this giant tortoise-looking thing in the fire area.
I remember that one being tricky because if you get lit on fire, you sprint around uncontrollably.
Yes, that's right. Because you fought this boss.
I fought this one, yeah.
And I think actually you fought most of the bosses. Because I was like, I would like go through the world, we'd get to the boss, and I'd be like, here you go.
Sean likes dungeons, I like bosses.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, here comes a monster right now.
The Gleerock has arisen.
Yeah, we definitely had several instances where Sean preferred to do the dungeons and I preferred to do the bosses.
Yeah.
I just get stuck really easy.
And I like tend to have good like a sense of direction, like in dungeons or in video games in general. Not in real life, just in video games. And I get
stuck in dungeons so easy.
Yeah, there would be times where like I'd be like, no, you got to go this way, or like, you know, I just remember.
But yeah, to get past Gleerock, you have to use the Cane of Pachi on his shell to remove his protection. Then he's stunned, and you can walk. He like stretches his neck out from the lava lake. You walk across and hit him in his magic gem weak spot.
Yeah. And this, of course, was in the larger dungeon called the Cave of Flames, which was, like, on top of the mountain. So it was, like, right after you got to meet all of the Minish in the cave.
Yeah.
And, like, they tell you, like, what they need to reforge the sword. And, you know, this is also the part where you have to climb that mountain.
Yeah.
And that, do you remember that section?
Yes.
That was a pain in the butt.
It was.
So this one was... I don't want to say that it was like like over the top challenging, but fighting Gleerock was a lot of fun.
I thought it was a lot of fun.
I thought it was a really, because there's, if we didn't set the scene right, there's like a pool of lava in the middle, and Gleerock pops up, and then he attacks, and then he stretches his neck out, or no, you flip the shell, then he stretches his neck out, and you climb up his neck to attack him.
So, especially because if you get hit by lava, you go sprinting around.
Which is a pain in the butt.
It is a pain, but it's like, it's very active. You gotta keep moving. So
you gotta keep dodging, because he shoots fire, and like you can't run in the middle of the map, so you're basically on the outer ring the whole time, which he's slowly filling with fire.
Yeah. That was a good boss, I think.
It was a good boss.
So then we have Mazal. There's always an enemy like this where it's like floating hands.
So like vaguely Aztec.
Boss.
This was in the Wind Temple, where you get to the top of that one.
Was this in the Wind Temple?
Yeah. This, I don't know if you remember, but this is the one where there's like all those switches and all the skeletons everywhere, and then there's like the hands that drop down under the sky. That's where this one was.
Okay. I thought the Wind Temple was the Gaiork pair. Was that?
Nope. I think there's the Wind, and then there's like a whole other one that you get to at the end. That's
I think
different.
You're right.
Yeah. So, but this guy, you have to hit the glowing lights in his fist with your bow and arrow, and then use your sword to hit the fists when they are knocked down. After both hands are destroyed, you have to shrink down into the Minish size and get into his head.
Which was awesome.
And then dig through the soft walls with mole mitts until you find a pillar with an eye on it and destroy the pillar with your sword. So this is like, we're third boss in. You're using lots of items here.
Yeah.
You have to really, I think that's one thing, and we'll talk about this when we talk about our feelings, but like I think it's one thing that they did a pretty good job of most of the time, is having to diversify the items in these fights to kind of make it feel fresh, or to really sort of allow the player for every item to have a use.
Yeah. And to really think, like, I feel like it puts you in that situation of like, oh my god, I have to try everything.
Yeah.
But as soon as you are in a boss fight and you see that there's a little Minish portal, you're already like, when do I have to get small? What do I have to do? Yeah,
you're kind of primed for it, and then you're like, well, where do I get small?
Yeah.
How do I get, this dungeon was, I remember it took us a while. This one was hard. There's just a lot going on in this one, a lot of like switches, a lot of paths, and to finally get to the boss like this one was one of the ones where after you finally beat Mazal, you're like, oh yeah, like you get a really gratifying feeling,
like sense of accomplishment.
Exactly.
So yeah, that takes us to the next regular enemy that was just real big, the big Octorok. So it's another Minish-sized fight. You just block the projectiles with your shield like you normally do with an Octorok, but after 3, it freezes itself in the entire room, so it's all slippery when you're trying to run around. Then you use your flame lantern to light. He has like a flower tail, and you can light it like a wick.
That's right.
And if the room gets dark, you use your torch to light up the room again. So this is really like...
And if I remember correctly, he like shoots stuff at you quite regularly. Now this was in the water temple. Mm-hmm. And this was like very, very similar to the ice temple in Ocarina of Time, because everything's frozen and you're slowly revealing it by like pulling light that allows you to open up the paths to eventually get to the big Octorok. The big Octorok, I remember with that one, I was like surprised. Like I wasn't, you kind of see it like at the beginning of the cave, and then it like disappears. Do you remember?
I vaguely.
It's like frozen at the beginning, and you kind of see it at the bottom of the screen, and then you gather all the light to melt all the ice. And,
I do remember that.
And then you free
that was cool.
Yeah. So this was another one of them doing a really good job of like exploring the environment. Like, there were all these ice pillars that you had to move certain mirrors and lights in order to melt the ice, and then the Octorok is free, and then you have to fight said Octorok. But obviously, this one I think wasn't as hard as some of the other bosses.
I feel like this one stressed me out.
Yeah?
But it might just be that I don't like Octoroks.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm learning to really hate Octoroks.
They're not fun.
This one was cute. If you look up a picture of the big Octorok, he's cute.
Look at him.
Aw, he's got a little flower on his head.
Who would write that on file?
Link would.
And then we have the last boss that's not the main big bad, was the Gyorg pair.
This one stressed me out, dude.
It was so cool. There was a lot happening.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. But it's a giant floating manta ray in the sky. It's got two rows of 4 eyeballs, right? So in those 2 rows, any arrangement of the eyes can be active. And there's the glowing panels that you use to create replicas of yourself with the Force Sword. So you just had to arrange Link in the right way so that he could attack all the visible eyes at once.
Yeah, best way to do that is to like spawn all 4 and just do a circle attack. Just hit all the eyes at once and you're good.
So you're attacking on the red Gyorg, all the eyes that appear, and meanwhile there's a blue Gyorg that's shooting fireballs at you. Then you have to jump onto the blue Gyorg using the Rock's Cape that you get that allows you to jump, and attack the eyeball on that one while it's swiping at you with its tail. So that's another...
Picture a giant sky battle. That's what this is. You're jumping from one flying thing to the other flying thing, and then you have to jump back to the giant flying thing so you can try and kill it. This whole dungeon was really hard. This was the one where we finally got the cape and we had to jump those clouds. Yep. So we were on this one for a while. I don't even remember why, but this one was just really hard.
I think because we were low on health and didn't have any healing items, so we just kept trying to blast through it without leaving the area. Oh,
you're so right. You're so right. Yeah. And there's also...
I think we used some save states here.
And I maybe I'm wrong, but I think maybe there's some points in this one where if you fall, you go back down to like a certain area.
I think you're right.
And there's like different places where you can fall, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
But
just adding this kind of vertical dimension to like a 2D Zelda game, though.
On the Game Boy Advance.
Like,
I was just gonna say that exact thing. It's just like this is one of those things that's like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. You're flying in the sky, and you're playing a Game Boy Advance game.
Yeah.
You know? I think that this was, to me, like one of the more memorable bosses of the series, just because of how chaotic it felt.
Yes.
And the difficulty, honestly. You know, it wasn't easy to like try and jump from manta ray to manta ray.
Yeah, no. It was tricky, and it was really frantic.
Oh, yeah. And you already said this, but like his tail would like swing around and
you're
hit
like jumping around. It's insanity.
Yeah.
So then finally we have the fight against Vaati, which has him in a couple of different configurations. So in his reborn form, there's rotating eyeballs around him that are shooting lasers, and you just attack them until they're gone, and then there's an eyeball that opens in his chest, and you attack that. And then, pretty simple.
Yeah, this is like at the end of the game, like Vaati has drained Zelda or whatever, and now he's like all powerful. He's got his special little hat on or whatever. And I thought one thing...
special little hat.
Yeah. I thought that like the Vaati Reborn phase looked really cool. He's like kind of regal, kind of like elegant looking. And
he's like a Pokemon.
He more so to me, he looks like something from Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, I know that that's a subtle difference, but my nerds out there will know what I'm talking about. He just like, if he was best friends with the Dark Magician, nobody would question, This fight though was difficult.
It was.
So this is back where like everything's turned to stone. You have set paths in the castle that you have to go to. You have to navigate all through the castle in order to even get to Vaati. And there's a lot going on in that castle.
Yeah, there really was.
We're talking about bigger, more difficult enemies. We're talking about all these different puzzles that you have to solve. There's that one room, I don't know if you remember, where there's like 4 quadrants and you have to go into each one. And there's like a boss, those knights that just show up. Mm-hmm. Which is like they're not really a boss, but they show up every now and again. They're just like different colored knights that you have to fight. I think
they were like Iron Knuckles or like a Dark Nut, that kind of Zelda enemy, if you're familiar.
And that ultimately all of that, and then there's that one space where you can keep getting hearts. I remember that.
I remember that. We made good use of that.
and then you finally get to fight the first form, the reborn form of Vati, which was another chaotic fight. As you mentioned, there's like all of those lasers all over the place, and you have to slowly like get rid of the lasers so they don't shoot you every time you can go and attack him.
Yeah.
That one was you. I remember watching you do that one because I was not doing that one.
Yeah, I did this one too, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
I know, like, the first phase, is tricky, but it definitely got more difficult as it went on.
You can definitely power through this one.
Yeah.
I don't think in the later versions of Vati you can power through them, but this one you can, like, kind of cheese it, take a couple... Exactly. Take a couple hearts worth of damage and keep going, and you can knock it out really quick. Not so much with the second phase, the transfigured phase.
Yeah.
That's as we transition into the second phase of Vati, if I remember correctly, he like sucks you into a different dimension or something.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like underground or something. And he's basically this giant eye that's surrounded by all of these balls. You have to use your bow and shoot the smaller balls, which opens up into either blue or red eyes. You're looking for the red eyes. The red eyes will configure themselves in a group of 4, usually right next to each other. And on the ground, of course, you have those glowing tiles where you can multiply yourself with the 4 swords. And you have to use that to configure yourself in the same shape as the eyes are around Vati. And then you have to chase him and attack all of the eyes all at once in order for it to count as a hit.
Yeah. I remember being really grateful that this didn't have a time limit.
Yeah, because the other thing that's happening is he's kind of floating around and he'll bump you, but he won't hurt you. But there's like all of these spiky rocks that are around you, and those will hurt you. So this is one of those ones, kind of like the Glee Rock, where you have to be aware of your environment on top of having to do this like difficult thing. It is not easy to configure Link in the shape of the eyes you have to hit.
You have to time it perfectly.
You do, because remember there were so many times where we would be lined up just right or just a little bit off, and we would miss it completely and be like, oh my god, and you have to restart the whole thing.
Yeah.
This one was really difficult. Because once you hit all of the red eyes, that will he'll fall over and you can attack the big eye, and that's how you get through this phase.
Yeah. And so then you have the last form of him, which is the Wrath of Vati. This is one you were talking about earlier, where the arms pop out on the floor, you dodge them, and then you use the Cane of Pachi to flip them. So
Took us forever to realize it was the Cane of Pachi. I actually
think we had to look that up.
Yeah, I think so.
But this is another one where it's like, oh, you can shrink to Minish size in this area. I wonder why, or how you're going to use it. But you go inside the arm, and then when you're inside the arm, there's all these little circular enemies that have an eyeball on them, and they're all looking forward, and then there's one of them that's looking to the side, but it's very frantic. They're all over the place.
They're it's kind of like if you were looking at a DVD menu,
but
there were 15 of them, and you have to find the real one.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really funny comparison.
That's what it is, dude.
And so this, you only have a short time to find and hit the correct eye. But once you do that, you disable the arm. Once you disable both arms, you get the 4 small eyeballs on the front. This took us forever, man.
Yeah.
The 4 small eyeballs will shoot a blue energy balls at you, and you have to use the panels to create the replicas to hit them back, which an energy ball coming at you that you hit back with a sword is a very common Zelda mechanic that you just experienced in Ocarina of Time with Phantom Ganon.
Yeah, I've been training in the Kirby frying pan game.
That's really funny. Training for the Ganondorf fight with Kirby's frying pan minigame. Yeah, so once you hit them back and avoid the lightning that he's shooting at you, you can go, because that was what was taken as so...
Yeah, because if the lightning hits any of your replicas, they're all destroyed. Yeah. And you have to restart the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's timing, it's getting everything right, and then hoping he doesn't shoot lightning or trying to move your guys out of the way. And then you have to also time your swing to hit all of those things back at Vadi.
Yeah, and if you're too close, it doesn't hit them correctly. If
That's
you're too far
right.
away, it'll like get rid of them.
I forgot about that.
It was craziness.
Yeah, I think I tried to cheese it and like moved like right up against him and just like swiped
Yeah,
a
and it
bunch.
like didn't work.
Yeah.
We were like, why won't this work?
This is stupid.
So Sean, now that we've gone over all of the bosses, which one would you say is your favorite?
Oh man. I honestly think my favorite is the big green choo-choo.
Really?
I just loved the sort of the way that they used that to like sort of introduce you to being Minish, being tiny. I think that was just so clever, and it was like one of the first times where like I was playing the game and being like, oh wow, like I'm tiny, like it was just I think it was really clever. It was really well done. I know he's not the hardest. I know he's not the most complicated or whatever.
Yeah, but I think boss is a whole experience.
Yeah, I think just because of the sort of the way that it sets you up for the rest of the game and the way that it sort of creates the environment and really pulls the player in, I think that's my favorite.
I love that answer. Mine's the Gyorg pair. It was insanity, but it was just so much, and it made the game feel so much bigger than it is.
I think we cheered for joy when you beat that.
Yeah.
We were like so
it was just a really like adrenaline pumping fight. It was freaking hard.
It really was, and Gyorg show up in other Zelda games as well, right?
Yeah, so you guys might recognize Gyorg as the name of one of the 4 bosses in Majora's Mask, that like one of the masks that you need. And then Gyorg is in Majora's Mask. It shows up as like a big fish with a stone mask on. And then when you play Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, those style like seafaring Zelda games, Gyorgs are the sharks with the stone masks. So they show up in other Zelda games as like a fish with a stone mask. And for some reason in this game, they're manta rays. But...
Well, after all of that, you fight Vadi. Link turns Eslo back to normal. Zelda is back to life. She's no longer a stone. Eslo gives Link a sweet green hat.
Sick, dude. Sick.
And now because at the beginning of the game, he doesn't have a hat.
No.
Then he finds Eslo, and then Eslo hooks him up with a hat so he doesn't look like a scrub. And then you depart through the doors. Then he departs through the doors of the Minish realm, and it seals itself for another 100 years. And that's the end of the game.
That's the end of the game. I wonder if we see Minish in any other game. Do you think we'll see any Minish in Tears of the Kingdom?
Well, you know what would be really sick? Is if in Ocarina of Time there were Minish, but you could only see them as young Link. And then when you turned into adult Link, they were just gone.
This game came out after Ocarina of Time, unfortunately. Yeah. That's the sad truth of the canonical versus chronological of like release. So we're going to talk just a little bit about our final thoughts here. Sean, overall, like, now that we've talked through, like, the items, the dungeons, some of the mechanics, like, what did you like and not like about Minish Cap?
I think one of my favorite parts of this game was the playability. It is very easy to put it down, pick it back up, and you know exactly where you left off. Mm-hmm. You have Eslo who's there, who prompts you to remind you what you're doing. A lot of it is pretty straightforward, so you kind of know where you're going or roughly know where you're supposed to be. I think that was a big deal for me. Skyward Sword was similar, where it was like more linear and like you kind of went from place to place. But I feel like in Skyward Sword you went to the 3 places, then you went back to Skyloft, then you had to go all 3 places a couple more times. Mm-hmm. In this one, I just think that it's more spread out. There's more. There isn't as much backtracking. I mean, you do have to go back to certain areas every now and again, but it's for specific things. It's not like, oh, play this level over again.
Right.
You know? It's like you did this thing, but now you've unlocked this other area. Go check that out. So playability-wise, I think I had a lot more fun playing this one. Like when we would be in between our sit down play sessions of this game, I would be thinking about playing this game.
Yeah.
This was a big one.
Yeah, you did think about this one a lot.
That was a big one. I mean, what about you? Do you have anything? I mean, there's other things that I enjoyed about this game too.
I'm sure it'll come up as we start talking about it. I had a love-hate relationship with the cuckoo minigame. When I was going through and looking at the video captures that I took, like 5 of them are of moments where I almost got the cuckoo in time. Like, I was just so stuck on this.
That one was
because
hard.
it's like no matter how many times you do it, there's a harder version of it. So I kept pushing through like, okay, I want to get a piece of heart, or like I want to get...
Yeah, it's got to be for something.
There's got to be for something. And it gets to a point where it's just for like blue shells or rupees or something. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Also, I just love Anju. As soon as I saw her in the game, I was like, oh my god, yes, the cuckoo lady. But yeah, I spent an inordinate amount of time on that mini game. But that brings me to... Realistically, the map of Hyrule Town is not that big, but it felt really busy. It felt like there was plenty of stuff going on.
Totally.
There's people everywhere. There's stuff happening. There's places you can't get to right away. And like then you gain the ability, and there's so much to do. And so I just feel like one of my favorite things about this game is that you don't even feel how small the game is. It's almost like the exact opposite of my complaints of Skyward Sword, like relative to its size, where Skyward Sword wants you to feel like you're in this big expansive space and you have all this freedom and you're flying in the sky, but it feels really trapped. And this was like the inverse of that, where it's like realistically it's a Game Boy game. There's not that much there if you look at it.
Totally.
Like if you were to scrap it for parts, it's like there's not a lot. Yeah. But there's so much to do, so much to see. And so what's wrong
with taking the back streets?
You know, that's what I was going to say, and I don't know how you knew that.
Well, we read each other's minds.
It's true.
Yeah, I think like kind of I feel like that harps back to one of the first things we talked about when we were talking through the different facts, that the main complaint of this game is that it's too short. Absolutely, you know, that this does feel like a bigger game in a smaller package, but I don't feel like oftentimes when that happens, right? There are corners cut that makes it feel like not put together well. Mm-hmm. I did not feel that about this. I felt like it was put together really well. It was very interesting. There are parts that are challenging, where you have to like kind of figure out or remember where to go. There was like one space in particular where we finally unlocked the ability to push a rock, and we didn't because we had like you had to have like 3 links, and we didn't have enough. And we didn't know where that was for a long time. And then we finally found it, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I feel so rewarded, you know, of like finally figuring that out. So you still had those moments without feeling like I'm walking around the map not knowing where the heck I'm going or what I'm doing. So I think they did a good job with like leading you where to go. Yeah. Fantastic items too. I think the diversity of the items, and I kind of talked about this a little bit too, with we were talking about our favorite items or the bosses rather. I think they do a good job of providing bosses and providing situations where you need to use your items in different ways. Yeah. And you really have to learn where your items will work the best, you know? Mm-hmm. If you're stuck in a certain area, you probably need to use a certain item. Mm-hmm. And I think they do a good job of that in the environments, like using the cane to jump up to a ledge, using the gust jar to unveil a switch, you know, and then going into like the fight in the Wind Temple with the 2 fists, you know. There's a lot. You have to use your bow, you have to use your sword, you have to use the mitts, all in one boss. Yeah. So I think that they do a really good job of like making it feel that every item is worth it. That there's a reason to use all of your items. I think they did a good job with that.
I think similarly, that's what I like about Kinstones and their relationship to the NPCs, where it's like, even if you have like a limited amount of items, you have all these instances where you use them in a variety of ways, you use them together. So you have this world that's full of NPCs and you have reasons to interact with all of them. So it's a game where it's like, you know, you mentioned one of the complaints is that it's short, but it's dense, really.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do. If you're going to spend a lot of time in that world, you're going to keep finding new things. You're going to keep unlocking new threads to follow.
And there's endgame content in that, you know, where like you can finish the game and you can still get a reflective shield by talking to the big Goron.
Yeah.
You know, like by fusing keystones and finishing side quests, like all of those things are still there for you to explore. It's just whether you choose to do that or not. And that's something that I enjoy too, because you can tailor your own experience to what you care about.
Yeah.
If I don't care about talking to NPCs and learning extra information, I'm probably going to have a lot of extra kinstones. Mm-hmm. But if I am the player who wants to dive into the world, talk to everybody, do everything, or I'm a completionist where I want to make sure I get all the Tiger Scrolls, make sure I get all the items and upgrades, you can do that. But it's not going to impede you from finishing the game.
Yeah, there are plenty of different ways to get through this game.
Exactly. Like, we didn't get all of the Tiger Scrolls until the last fight with Vati.
Yeah. I don't even think we got all of them still.
Yeah. So, just the versatility as well, to tailor it to your own style and still be able to finish the game and have fun is not something that you see very often in games like this. So I thought that was really well done as well.
I have to also bring up just the visuals. When you shrink down for the first time and you're walking in that path and there's these giant clovers and like the unripe strawberries, I literally was like, oh my God. I like was so excited about that.
Yeah, it's so immersive in that way.
Yeah,
it's
like
a
you
good
have
use of the
these
space.
Moments where you're like walking through a log and there's like a giant bug and it's just like, whoa. Like they did such a good job with like the aesthetic and just like the atmosphere of this game and how it feels. I loved, you know, that part, one of the first things when you're in Hyrule Town and it's like you're in the guy with the shoes. Yeah. And you're in his shop and then when you shrink down, it's like you're walking by these giant shoes and it's just like, it just never gets old because it's so like, they put so much detail on all these little corners that you can explore and they look different when you're small and close up. And I really, really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the aesthetic was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we're at the end here. On a scale of 0 to 10 Link hearts, what are you giving Minish Cap for your official score?
I want to say 8 hearts, 8 out of 10 hearts.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't want to give it 10 hearts, but it's because I want to reserve 10 hearts for the ones that make me want to freak out because I love them so much. Mm-hmm. But this one was so good.
What would you say as far as like within your scale, right? I think a huge contributing factor to the ones that you love a lot is replayability.
Yeah.
You know you really love it when you want to replay it. How likely do you think you are to replay Minish Cap?
I already want to replay Minish Cap.
Yeah.
I already want to replay it. And I want to go through all the nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
You know, because we were playing it specifically to record this podcast.
Yeah.
So it's like now I'm like, oh, I have like a base familiarity with this game. I would totally go back and like try and find more secrets.
Totally.
Yeah. So I'll 8 out of 10 hearts. It's just great. And that feels on par with its like like this game is phenomenal. Middle of the road score.
Yeah. So for me, I'm going 9 out of 10. Ooh. Okay? So I had so much fun playing this game.
Yeah.
We had a blast sitting together and like just being silly and giving all the different characters different voices and stuff.
He made Zelda sound like Lumpy Space Princess.
I did. It was fun. And replayability, absolutely up there. Not only have I wanted to play it again, but I've literally watched videos of other people playing it for fun. I really liked this game a lot. I have to say, like, sitting down and actually going through this game, it's one of my favorite Game Boy Advance games that I've ever played. The story was good. The art was good. The music was good. I don't know what else I'm looking for in a game that I would want to play. For it being my second game that I've played in the Zelda franchise, I think that it just surpasses Skyward Sword in so many ways. And I think that it shows what a good Zelda game can be versus when one's not done right, you know? I think retrospectively looking at the fun I had with Minish Cap sort of illuminates what was missing in Skyward Sword to me now, where I can go, you know, maybe I didn't like that as much as I thought I did.
Do you want to change your heart rating of Skyward Sword?
I think once it's in there, it's in there.
Okay.
I don't even remember what I gave it.
I don't either.
But absolutely, in my opinion, Minish Cap is a must play. If you don't have the Switch online, if you're using an emulator, if you find it for your Game Boy Advance, absolutely give it a play. You will not regret it. One of the funnest games I've played in a long time.
Yeah, it's a great game.
Absolutely.
Highly recommend. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us on the Broomghost Dustpan podcast for our second installment of Wait, Is That Not Zelda? We're going to see you next time when we review Ocarina of Time.
This is a big one, folks. Make sure that you're here for this. And hey, if you're listening to this, that means that Tears of the Kingdom is probably out. So let us know what you think about Tears of the Kingdom. We want to know. We're probably playing it too. Crystal's probably been playing it for days. So
probably haven't emerged into the sunlight.
Right. I'm going to have to bathe her with a sponge. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we hope to see you in the next episode.